Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jonathan, aka Fox and Ariel, and today's video is going to be a bit on the heavier side, so just FYI. I suppose I could say trigger warning as well, because I will be explaining as much in detail as I can about what happened, so just be warned that it might not suit everyone, right? So yeah, so on the 30th of August 2024, my grandmother passed away, and I was the one that found her after she had passed. So everything started with that I spoke to my grandmother Thursday night before, so on the August 29th. I spoke to my grandmother and she asked me to take out her garbage and her compost, which I said, sure, obviously, yes, of course, because my grandmother, for the past 2 weeks before she passed, she had been in a bit of pain. And my granny was like healthy, like all the way through until like the last 2 weeks. Then she was not ill per se, but she was a bit not as, energetic as she usually was. She was 88 as well, so she has had a long life, and she has had a very adventurous life, if nothing else, and she did get to have a last adventure before she passed as well. So you could say that she went out. You could say that she went out with a bang, kind of, because just like a couple of weeks before everything started to go downhill, she had a 9-day trip with a friend of hers over all over Sweden, and she saw the ice hotel and the salt mines and the silver mines, so they were like 9 days going around all of Sweden on 7 different hotels. For someone who's 88, I mean, this is good on you. So she got one last adventure, which is kind of, I mean, somehow it feels kind of, calming to know that she got her last adventure kind of thing, and she saw a lot of Swedish history and sights and all the things, and it just looked fabulous from the pictures that I saw. But here's the thing: she has had what's the word of it? Angina pectoris, I think it's called in English, which is like a for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the blood that goes to the heart. It's minimized. It's the wrong word, but it's not as efficient as it once was, which is the easiest explanation, I suppose. And so, for example, if she ate something and then went outside too quickly after, she would have a hard time breathing, and she would feel like cramping around, this area and stuff. So she got the spray for that to, widen her what do you call it? Vascular system. I don't know what to call it in English, but so that usually went okay. But for the past few weeks, 2 weeks, when things started to go downhill, it didn't really help. that spray didn't really do much at all, really. And she started to have a lot of pain in her legs, and things were just, she got more tired, and she didn't have the energy to do things as much in general. So I suppose we all had a feeling, kind of, that things were going to happen. But anyways, my sister called me the morning after I had spoken with my grandmother, because my grandmother called, or I called her after I spoken to my father, and just checked in on her, and she was like, could you please take out my compost and my garbage? And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So this was August 29th, the evening on August 29th, and my sister usually called my granny around 10 a.m. ish, somewhere around between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. almost every day. But my grandmother didn't answer the phone. Which is also not strange, because sometimes, you go to the bathroom, or you are in the shower, or, whatever. Or sometimes you might not even hear your phone. But she always calls back, if not rather quickly. But my grandmother hasn't called back at all. So my sister called me, and I was still in bed by then. So this was around like 11, I think. So my sister called me and asked me, could you please go down and check on Granny, because she's not answering her phone. And I could hear that my sister was a bit stressed. So I didn't really, yeet myself up out of bed and like ran down. I was kind of calm, and I got up, I got dressed, I went to the bathroom real quick, and then I went down. So I didn't really, yeet myself right out of the door. Partly because I heard how my sister sounded. I heard that she was a bit, ooh. So I was like, don't stress yourself unnecessarily. Just don't expect anything unless we, until we know facts. And I came down to my granny's flat, and I rang the door, as mentioned, and I went in, and everything was, dark, and the flat was just quiet. It was too quiet. As mentioned, when you arrive home from anywhere, if you live alone, I mean, obviously the house or the flat is quiet when you come home. But it was it was the wrong kind of quiet. And so I took a few steps in, and I was like, hello, Granny, are you there? Oh, by the way, the music in the background is from Pretzel Rocks. And it's set on YouTube safe mode and streaming safe mode, so it should be fine. But I went a few steps in, and then I saw a pair of feet sticking out of the bathroom. And there she was. You don't really expect to wake up one morning, no matter where you are or where you live, and go downstairs to a relative of any kind and find a body on the floor. That's not what you expect at all. And I had my sister on the phone when I went down. I was still on the phone with my sister, and I just saw the feet, and I was like, I need to call 111 or 112 we have in Sweden. And I was like, I need to call the emergency, stuff. So I did. And the thing we have a thing in Sweden called SMS savers, or SMS people, which is like civilians who have a CPR CPR education, or like they have done CPR training, so they can, you know, if the emergency the paramedics isn't here, they can come first and like keep things going until the paramedics arrive. And they came like 30 seconds after I had made the phone call, more or less. Maybe a minute. I didn't really have, you know, time checked. But I spoke to the lady on the phone with the emergency central, or whatever you want to call it. And the good thing about this is that my grandmother was in a recovery position in the bathroom, right? So she hadn't fallen. There was no sign of panic. She just lay there, and she looked so peaceful, in some weird way. And she didn't have her phone with her, which she usually does. She had went, you know, gotten out of bed and went to the bathroom and laid down in recovery position, because I think she knew that it's time. I think she really felt that, because if in a state of panic, you don't go and put yourself in recovery position. And even, I mean, I called the paramedics and SOS, whatever you want to call it in English, like at the split second I saw the feet. I mean, I somehow knew, like in the back of my mind, that it was already too late. And also, I think it was a good thing that they didn't, you know, made it to, you know, to the point where they could like resuscitate her, because even if they did manage to get her, you know, back, my grandmother's biggest fear was becoming, you know, someone who was alive but still wasn't there. She didn't want to become just like a vegetable lying there, and she didn't want to bother anyone with anything, really. So I think she knew, I think she was very, very well aware that this is it. And she just got up and went to the bathroom and lay down, and that's it. The worst part of this is, I think that when I had to call the emergency, they told, because in the house where I live, our bathrooms are really small, like really small. So if you're one person in a bathroom, it's like, you know, crowded. That's how small they are. And I had to carry her out of the bathroom. So yeah, to lift someone who is, you know, here, so to speak, somehow they help, you know, but to lift someone who is no longer there, it's a completely different thing. There's nothing. I mean, there's no resistance. There's no action. Nothing. It's just like pull. It's just like lifting a bag of potatoes, kind of thing. It's nothing helps. So I had to move her out of the bathroom. And I think the paramedics must have thought I was like losing it or something, because I was like, when something serious happens, when something serious happens around me, I kind of have a tendency to go cold, as in I become very calm. I become very, very calm and very, very clear, like, and as in, I think it's a protective measure thing, like it's a trauma response. That if everybody else is panicking, I can't panic because it doesn't help, and I have my panic moment later. But then my sister called my uncle as well, and he arrived shortly after that I had the paramedics arrive, and when he arrived, I just couldn't keep a straight face anymore. I just broke. And I just broke down, and the only thing I could say was, "I'm sorry." But then again, as mentioned, I really, really think that she was very well aware what was going on, and also the fact that she didn't take her phone with her as well. And also she went up to the bathroom and laid down in recovery position, as mentioned. And there wasn't any sign of panic, any sign of struggles, anything. She just laid down and that was it. Because I think she just wanted to, and this is my honest thought. I really think that when she realized what was going on, she just wanted to be done with it, She didn't want to bother anyone. She just wanted to go in peace. And if there is something all of us in the family has basically told her, is like, if you're in pain, Granny, if you're in pain, or if you need to complain about something ever so slightly, that's okay. You are allowed to be in pain if you have pain. You are allowed to say ow if you are in pain. You are allowed to say I'm sad if you're sad. But she was very like, her best friend had fallen at the care home that she was in, and had broken her one of her legs on 3 places. And my granny was like, "Oh, my best friend has broken her legs on 3 places, and here I am complaining about my life." And I was like, "Honey, you are allowed to complain if you have, whatever she was in English, with the blood flow thing, the angina pectoris. I mean, that's a pain, and I could see how much in pain she was at sometimes, and it was really hard. And I was like, you are allowed to be in pain, Granny. I mean, if you hurt, say ow. It's okay." But she was like, no, that's always somebody who's worse off than me. I was like, but it's still okay to say ow if you are hurting, or say that you're sad if you're sad. That's okay. I mean, Jesus. But she was very much like that. It was like, and when the paramedics came, they did CPR and yada yada whatnot, but obviously it was already too late. Because when somebody leaves this world, when the body is, done, so to speak, whatever you have left in your system will, come out, be it that way or the other way. And that had already happened. The worst part of it all is that she was still she was still warm when I came down, so it had happened like really recently before I came down. But as mentioned, there was no sign of struggle, there was no sign of panic, there was no sign of, anything happening, like she hadn't fallen or anything. So in that perspective, I think it was kind of easier to find her like that as well, because there was no struggle. I mean, it's still hard as hell, and I wish I would never wish upon anyone to find a relative on the floor like that, no matter what the circumstances is. Even though I think I am actually happier though that I found her than my father or my uncle, because throughout my life I have lost so many friends, and so many people that I care about, that I do consider family or like extended family, and not family by blood, so to speak. And you think that after so many times and so many things, I mean, I can count on two hands. That's even not enough of how many people I have known that have passed on one reason or another, be it illness or self helping towards that section. It's still absolutely horribly hard, no matter what. But the absolute worst thing, I think, was that I had to carry her out of the bathroom. And when I did, as said, I think the medical staff must have thought I was completely bonkers, because I was like, I went into some kind of work mode, because I do have a tendency to do that, because I have worked as a personal assistant and to people who has like had mental disabilities and stuff, to some extent. So then it's, when stuff happens, you just have to be like that. There's no reaction, it just have to be like, okay, this happened, right, now how do we go from here and onwards? And you have to be like really just calm and centered and collected. And then after everything is done, and then you go home or you go away from that specific place and that person, so that then you can start, show your feelings again, without needing to, keep a lid on. I mean, you could still, show feelings and stuff, but it has to be, within a certain frame. And I was like, I just switched off my brain and went like, excuse me, ma'am, I'm gonna have to do this now. I'm gonna have to lift you up. And I mean, I knew she was already gone, but I was like, excuse me, I'm just gonna have to grab you and lift you out of the bathroom, because of the medical staff that will be arriving shortly. So I became some kind, I don't know, it sounded like I became some kind of train conductor, something like, it felt like, it just felt weird. And then, and also by just sheer reflex, I grabbed her bathrobe and just laid like on her, because she really wasn't in anything more than her underwear. So I just, because of decency's sake, because I felt like it would be more respectful towards her. Obviously, if they need to work and do CPR, they yeeted that off like there was nothing but a wet towel. and started trying to do the CPR and get her back, but it was already too late. Because and then they told us to leave the apartment for a few seconds, and then they put her in her bed, and she looked so peaceful, and she looked so just, I mean, you could genuinely see that she was, she was no longer there, but she looked so peaceful somehow, and she was just like she was sleeping, Though the good part about this, though, is that everything was extremely fresh. So she hadn't been there for more than, before they came and picked her up and moved her to the morgue. She hadn't been here. I mean, when they picked her up, I think she had been, gone for maybe 2-3 hours tops. So the entire body and stuff and things, it didn't really started to, look sunken in as, and it didn't look, I mean, she did, when they got her, she was looking, rather pale, though. But it didn't, she hadn't been lying for several days, so there was no smell, there was no, there was nothing that was like intensifying the traumatic bit, so to say. And it was, thankfully, though the only thing that might have smelled a little bit was because of the, when somebody passes away and the body relaxes, if you have anything in your system, no matter how little gets passed via, any orifice that's available, be it mouth or nether regions. So I think that was about the worst part. I mean, she had thrown up a little bit, but it wasn't much at all, thankfully. So it wasn't really something that needed a lot of cleaning. But she had just the whole fact that she had the thought of that. She went to the bathroom and just laid down, and that was that. She was so aware and so conscious about, like, okay, this is it. And she didn't want to go, obviously. I mean, because she has told us so many times that I don't want to go. But if it's my time, it's my time. And I won't fight it if it is. So she was so aware of that. And she was, I think, it was so. I mean, I can only make the reference to when, for example, when Hermione in Harry Potter describes about the 3 brothers in the Deathly Hallows, and the last one who has, the one who has the invisibility cloak, when his time had come, he faced death as an old friend, and went with him as an equal. And I think this is kind of the same thing here. She knew that this is it, and she just accepted it for what it was. So she met, as a friend, as mentioned, and just understood that this is my time. So a bit of a backstory as well. My grandmother is born in Lwów, in Poland, in old Poland, and Lwów is now a part of Ukraine. And she had to flee from Poland during the Second World War. and she fled to France and lived there for some years, and then she had to flee again, and then she came to Sweden, and that's a funny thing, because I mean, obviously my grandmother didn't know Swedish when she came here, around, I think it was like somewhere between the years of like 12 to 15, somewhere in that span. I'm not 100% sure. But there is like this blackout she had. There is a section which is just blank, because she was like, I know that I didn't know Swedish when I came here, but at the same time I have no memory of not knowing Swedish, which is kind of interesting, because obviously she didn't have any Swedish ancestry, and she just but she came here then, and she lost her own mother very young, and I like to think that I mean, being a believer in whatever you like, be it in Christianity or Hinduism or Greek mythology or Nordic mythology, or whatever it might be, you know, if you're a druid or if you're a Wiccan or if you believe in whatever. I really believe that now she is catching up with her mother and her brothers and sisters somewhere, be it, you know, heaven or beyond or whatever, and she's catching up with them on all her adventures and her life and, you know, all that jazz, because the family did get split up during the Second World War, due to, I mean, people went a bit everywhere just to try to flee, and so many of my relatives on my grandmother's side ended up in the US, Poland, France, and, you know, that area, and my father's brother was in Auschwitz, and he survived, though he didn't really make it far afterwards. He never, you know, recovered fully. But I feel like no matter what you believe in and no matter what you think, for me personally, I think it's a comforting thought that she's now sitting there and having coffee or tea or a glass of wine and having, you know, cookies and cakes or whatever, and just talking, and he's just catching up with all the adventures that she had. But yeah, it's so weird, because it feels like every time I go down to her flat, because I have to be there relatively often because I need to check the mail, I also need to water her flowers and stuff, and make sure that things, you know, whatever is still, you know, working there, just needs to be working until it's, you know, cut off. But it's like time. It's like time is frozen. It's like it's like walking into a time pocket of something. It's just weird. But yeah, she's no longer in pain. She has finally reached her end, and she has all the right to rest and to move on to whatever next adventure that she might have, either to decide to have, or what is already written, or whatever you might think or believe in. But she has lived her life. She has had an eventful life. It may have started a bit rough, yes, but in the long term of things, her life has been, she has had a good life, and she has had a giving life with both ups and downs and stuff. But it has been, she was very, very fair and very just. She wanted everyone to be as equal as possibly possible. And obviously you can't get like everything to be 100% equally all the time, but she tried to do it as best as she could. And she never stopped trying to do that. Up till the very last moments, she never stopped trying to do anything except being fair and just. And also kindness beyond measure. So I am 35 now. I turned 35 this year. So I have been immensely lucky to have my grandmother for as long as I have. And she has been a mountain of support, and she has been a rock to keep me grounded. And I mean, obviously we have had our differences and a few arguments here and there. I mean, but we're family, so who doesn't? But she is at peace now. And not long ago, we went to the hospital, to the morgue, and said our final goodbyes. And I was slightly frightened that she would look different, because as you move on, the body starts to deteriorate, and the skin gets sunken in, and the body just goes but she looked so peaceful. She looked even more peaceful then, I think, than she did before they came and picked her up here to move her to the morgue. And she just... And I asked them, have you done anything? And they were like, nope, nothing. We just picked her up and put her in storage until further notice, until the morticians come and pick her up, more or less. But she looked so beautiful and so sweet and so relaxed, just like she was sleeping. It's really weird. I just feel empty, really. And I mean, the feels will go up and down, and I will feel probably both angry, happy, and empty, and sad, and whatever for quite some time. I mean, it will have to come and go as necessary, because I mean, I can't really control the feelings that much. Even sometimes I wish I could. But it just feels empty. It just feels... So, now what? I mean, there is not much to do than just to see the situation for what it is, and take one day at a time, and take it at one's own pace, and just have all the feelings, be angry, be sad, be happy, laugh, cry. I mean, obviously I'm not angry with her. It's just, I don't know, I think I'm just angry at the whole the whole situation in general, because I don't really understand it. Because it's really, it's just weird. As I said earlier, you don't really expect to wake up one morning and go down to your granny's apartment, or any relative for that matter, and just find a corpse on the floor. That's not what one expects. So yeah, so it's what it is, I suppose. It's I just felt like I needed to share this because of I just needed to tell someone, really, and explain. I mean, I don't owe anyone an explanation in general, but I just felt like I needed to at least, say something on why I haven't been doing stuff for some time. So yeah, it's weird. It's just really weird. But yeah, we are going on 40 minutes now, only almost 42 minutes here. So I'm just gonna end the video now with this as well, saying please take care of each other. And no matter what differences you have, if solvable, try to forget. I mean, you don't necessarily need to forget, but at least forgive and just try to be your best self and do what's best for you as an individual, obviously, and I mean, do what is best for your health and for your mental health. If that, no matter what, if that means cutting people off, or if that means embracing new people, or forgiving old fights and arguments and whatever, as long as it's something that is right for you, and something that will give you peace, and as long as one doesn't hurt oneself or anyone else. But I believe in that we need to take care of each other, and that we need to be kind to that extent that is possible. I mean, not as in like getting stupidly so, but firm but kind, just and kind. That's what I believe. I will try to get back on track with stuff and things as soon as possible. The funeral is in little less than a month, and I have some songs to record for that, because my granny wanted me to sing at a funeral. So I'm going to work a bit on that, but I will try to get back on track with YouTube and on other things and stuff as well as soon as possible. And I'll hopefully see you again on the next one. There will be more games, there will be more singing, there will be more IRL stuff as well in the future. I am sorry for the heavy subject, but I just thought I needed to. I felt like I just needed to tell someone. But I do hope that you guys are doing okay, and make sure that you take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.